So I just wanted to kind of record something. So for, quite a while I've been, kind of saying, or in one form or another, that Americans have it too easy. I mean, typically I would, it had something, a little bit different than that, but somebody had kind of put it that way, which kind of tied it into, Americans, aside from migrants who have been in, other countries, right? Obviously, um, you know, don't really have any kind of concept of what it looks like, what it sounds like, when your constitution, your understanding of it from civics class or whatever, or your reading of the US Constitution does seem a little bit different than reality. And so, on the one hand, I get that, some whomever might hear this someday, right? Some people might kind of take, okay, you're a white guy, you're a guy, right? I mean, you know, and my job's not too bad either. So sure, it's easy for me to say, we have it too easy. I don't mean that we don't have people, way too many people that are totally destitute, that we don't have, Walmart, for instance. I believe McDonald's as well. There's quite a few other ones which are knowingly keeping their wages low because they know, well, they're going to get, Medicaid. They're going to get, they're going to get bailed out effectively, by the public sector, by taxpayers, right? The way we understand it. So, but let's kind of talk about what is this concern, right? What is this government I speak of? So our government, of course, is three co-equal branches. The litigation or legislature I've had a problem with for a long time because they act as if they are cheerleaders. Because once upon a time, this was surprising. You would routinely have your Congress members complaining, much like Trump did, right, and does, complaining about the government as if they're not only part of the government, but like today, complaining about all of this, fraud, all of this, this appropriations that obviously fraudulent that shouldn't have happened, and it's like the people agreeing with that are the legislatures who signed that into law, right? They are the people who, if they weren't doing oversight, I'm with you. I mean, I'm sure weren't. Medicaid has had an annual report on their fraud and what they're doing with the DOJ to go after a lot of the cases. I don't know for how long. My understanding for quite a while. I've never once heard Republican or Democrat, a congressman, refer to that report. And in fairness, I'm not on, CPAN all the time or whatever. But at least the impression that the American people get is, sure, there's probably fraud out there. If only we knew what it was. And so, so that's the legislature who's basically with this last CR, they've codified what Elon Musk has done in effectively closing agencies that they signed bills for. They did appropriation. Right. So you get what I'm saying. Then we have the judiciary, which I've also had an issue with, but mainly the U.S. Supreme Court. There's a lot there. I'm not going to unpack it. But so I'm rather critical of that. But, it's a good system. It's good to have some kind of system like that. I know people from overseas that grew up overseas. The reason they loved America was we actually have a court system. This isn't about did you give money, did you bribe this judge, or did you bribe the wrong judge, and now you're before somebody else that now you got to bribe him too, right? So you got that kind of shit that people are coming from. So, it needs a lot of improvement, whatever, but it's not bad. And now we have the executive branch just flat out saying, yeah, we don't gotta follow you. And so, you know, so they're deciding not to adhere to what the federal judges are asking for. And in a lot of cases, they're just asking for more information. But it winds up with the president and Republicans in Congress saying, "Well, yeah, we need to impeach them," right? Um, so, and these are the same people in a lot of cases who were absolutely fine with trying to achieve their goals, the GOP's goals, by venue shopping, like some podunk. All due respect to that area, but someplace in Texas that has nothing to do with the law because they knew that I forgot the guy's name, it doesn't matter, but that judge would get it and he's friendly to, their side. And the Fifth Circuit is, kind of almost like their own little circuit court, or a district or U.S. Supreme Court, sorry, to where they've even kind of came to heads with the U.S. Supreme Court over, who's in the driver's seat in their mind. So, so now we have one effective branch of government. And that's not anywhere close to the Constitution. Um, but for good reason, I guess. The supporters of the president, either depending on who they are, I guess, don't want to realize, don't want to think about the fact that they are pushing for deporting somebody without due process, deporting hundreds of people without due process, and because they said something, or they had a tattoo, and they were undocumented in some cases. But there is a process for that, though. Republicans, if they wanted to solve the problem, right, that they always say they want to do, there's people just a lot of people lined up, right, with all kinds of detailed, plans of how we could solve the problem. But the problem, though, is that GOP, for as long as I can remember, has always been about defunding, about making things harder to sign up for type of solutions, right? So then you have less people. The government pays out less because it's harder to get on program X or whatever. Um, and there's no concern that some people who are maybe should be entitled. I don't want to even use entitled because that's just bullshit. But should be getting help by the government to help them, get a leg up and then, become productive citizens, however you want to look at it. If you're a humanist, so you're looking out for the person, or you just want another worker who can be more productive, that's there too. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, without being a lefty. So, you know, I, so anyway, let me wrap this up. I just thought of something. I think what I was thinking I was going to talk about. But we do not have anything close to a manifestation of the U.S. Constitution. And in a lot of ways, we haven't for quite a while because Democrats are feckless. They just so it's the GOP are actively though going around are deciding to reinterpret what have you the Constitution at all times. And so take it as you will, I guess, or whatever. Okay. Have a good day.